Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube, and welcome to another edition of my 10,000 subscriber Q&A series. At this particular point in time, if you did ask a question that is part of the 10,000 subscriber Q&A series, and you watched this complete installment, you watched the other part in this particular series, and you realize I have yet to answer your question, please let me know in the comments section below, and please take the time to repeat your question so that I can just go through the comments, look at what questions are left, and then do one or two final videos to wrap up this particular Q&A series. That would mean a lot to me. I thank you so much for your time, and I do apologize as to how long it has taken me to get through all of these in-depth questions. With that being said, first question today. Hi, Sean. Congrats on 10,000 subscribers. From a financial investment point of view, what has been your best investment? What has been your worst? And what did you learn from each experience? Okay, if you go back and you watch every single Q&A I have ever done since the infancy and origins of this YouTube channel, you're going to see I probably answered this question multiple times before. So what I am going to do is I'm going to focus on the last question you ask here, and that is, what did you learn from each experience? This is the best advice I can give you as a 45-year-old man. Anytime you act 100% out of fear or 100% out of greed, you are most likely not going to make a wise decision over the long term. Said another way, anytime you act out of FOMO, you are most likely making a very foolish decision over the long term. And this does not just apply to financial assets and or business decisions, guys. This applies to dating, relationships, friendships, of course, financial investing, investing in antiques and collectibles, investing in NFTs or cryptocurrency if you want to go that route, which I do not recommend over the long term. That being said, this is a fundamental truth to the universe that I've pretty much discovered. Anytime you make a decision that is rooted 100% out of fear or 100% out of greed, most likely you are making a wrong decision that is not going to work out for you over the long term. Are there exceptions to this rule? Yes, but very rarely. And as a matter of fact, when I go back through my life, 45 years, and I look back at certain decisions that I've made or didn't make, in most cases, in all honesty, when it came to investing, when it came to dating or relationships, a lot of times, the best decision that I've ever made was to do absolutely nothing. And that turned out to be 100% correct. That's why when a lot of you guys come to me and say, Sean, you don't understand. I'm putting all my money in comic books or Pokemon cards or whatever collectible card game is up and coming, or Lego sets, or even antiques, rare coins. What is it that I say to you? You need to be financially established first. Your best course of action probably would have been to do absolutely nothing and take that money and put it in well-diversified index funds over the long term. And as a matter of fact, they've done studies. I have access to them. If you want to see me do a video on this, where people over 20, 30 years, what they invested in, what were the best returns, and how they made most of their money. And you understand that for the most part, investing in real estate, investing in the financial markets, investing in index funds and the like, that has always been the better course of action than investing in any of these alternate asset classes, whether it's precious metals, whether it's collectibles, whether it's antiques, probably whether it's cryptocurrency or NFTs, though we don't know yet, because those particular asset classes are still very new. But I can tell you, if you go back to the infancy of the antiques and collectibles trade, and you take people that were trying to invest long-term in these markets, and you compare them to individuals that were just going throughout their life regularly investing in index-based mutual funds, the people that invested in index-based mutual funds, which were a thing starting in the 1970s, make no mistake of that, those people did fundamentally better over the long term in most cases. And this is something that nobody really wants to take some time to analyze. It's people that have confirmation bias that just go to YouTube and go, hey, that dude's putting all his money in Magic the Gathering. The guy over here is putting all his money in Pokemon. And the guy in the middle right here, he's putting all his money in comic books. Therefore, I'm going to invest in comic books, Pokemon, and Magic the Gathering because I know those markets and because other people are obviously doing it and they have a lot more than me from what I see on YouTube. So therefore, obviously, if I invest in those markets, I'll have what those people have. That is a fallacy, guys. Most of the people, I've said this many, many times, that invest in the antiques and collectibles trade already own real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, corporate bonds. They are diversifying in antiques and collectibles because they have the money and means to do so. Very few people can start off coming into these markets, making a name for themselves, and building wealth through the process. Look at how many collectible dealers end up going belly up. Just look at how many people are liquidating collections or inventory. They're selling it almost at cost or a loss because they want to get out. These are real stories. This is happening today in the year 2022 with the massive bull run-up in a lot of these markets and asset classes. You got to understand the risks and rewards before you get into anything in life, whether it's a relationship, friendship, dating, whatever it is, business, corporate career, whatever you're doing. You need to understand the risks versus the rewards. And unfortunately, in the year 2022, we have too many people acting out of emotion or acting out of desire and or wants, rather than sitting down and taking a hard look at their course of action and the reason why they're taking that course of action. And that's a shame. And that's why 50% of you cannot build a net worth. Most of you watching this channel, 50%, statistics tell me this, pretty much could not afford a $400 expense without putting it on your credit card or without selling an item. And I consider that to be one of the greatest sins against humanity. And I hate to say this, even as a liberal progressive, I don't see it getting better. I wish that it would. I wish that there was something I could do in a heartbeat to help a lot of people out there who are struggling. It's just the way our political and economic system are intertwined, even in the United States. A lot of people think that their vote really matters. I'm going to state this, even during the 2020 election. Literally look at the candidates that you had before you. Are we really living in socialism right now? Or if Trump would have won, would we really be living in unfettered capitalism or libertarianism? Some of you guys crack me up with this. In all honesty, let's be realistic. Both political parties in the United States are pretty much corrupt and they adhere to their corporate donors. They do not care what the average person or American or individual needs or wants. We have two right-wing parties in the American political system, and literally one is just a little bit more lenient than the other one. If you would go to any other country, as a matter of fact, I know there's people out there from Europe, from other countries that listen to this particular YouTube channel. Do you guys, I'm going to ask you guys an honest question. Do you guys honestly think that the political parties that we have in America are quote unquote liberal or socialist? Even Bernie Sanders. Does Bernie Sanders really sound like a socialist to someone living in Norway or Switzerland or even the United Kingdom, dare I say that? I guarantee you, if you're from one of those countries and you're listening to Bernie Sanders speak, it's like, wow, this guy's what we consider a conservative. That's why I'm not getting political in this video. You can vote and do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, just know it's not going to get any better, most likely. In fact, I predict it's going to get worse. So it's really up to you to make better decisions for yourself and your family, if you have one, financially. And also, if you are, I've said this before, if you're single in the dating pool, you have to be able to vet people that you are dating. There is no such thing. One thing I want to touch in here is this stupid idea where there's like this hidden segment of men that are like in the top 3% that are just like banging all these women. They have money, looks, status. It doesn't work that way, guys. Even people of money, means, people who look good, they still get rejected in the dating pool, okay? Some of you guys are listening to the worst commenters on YouTube, and you're trying to apply it to your financial life, your dating life, your relationships, and your professional career. And it is not working for you. Let me just state that. It is very obvious when I come across someone in my corporate career who thinks he is alpha or red-pilled. It is quite obvious to myself, and I'm going to just state this, it's quite obvious to the women that he engages with, that he's coming across as being fake. He is coming across as not being his authentic self. If you want to have a successful relationship with any women out there, I'm going to tell you something. You need to be vulnerable, and you also need to be able to have intimacy. Without vulnerability, you cannot have intimacy. You know, I was just watching an excellent video. Courtney Ryan, I don't know if you know who that is. She has her own YouTube channel. Very attractive young lady. She puts out a lot of excellent content, and she did an excellent video on vulnerability. And I always have to laugh because I will come across a hardcore red pill channel that tells you, you cannot be vulnerable around women. You have to have frame. You have to be the alpha male. And I sit there and laugh because you want to know something, guys? At 45, a lot of the relationships that failed, the ones that I really wanted to work out with women, were the ones where I was not seen as vulnerable. And that's something that I learned about myself just in the last few years. And that's why I'm giving you that as part of the advice where I'm tying this back. What did you learn from each experience? Because a lot of people just think that financial success is just that. Financial success ekes into everything, just like financial failure ekes into everything. If you don't believe me, look at anybody who had a successful and happy marriage who ended up going bankrupt. In most cases, the relationship was either changed or it didn't survive that financial event. There's a reason for that, guys. If you're successful in finance, you can be successful in relationships. If you're successful in relationships, you can be successful in finance. Learn from that. Believe me, I've come a long way in the last 5 years. Now, I went through celiac disease. There was like a 7 to 8 year period where I couldn't even date. Coming out of that was hell. I had to literally rediscover myself. And again, I don't want a pity party or anything, but I did lose 7 to 8 years of my life on the dating scene and being true to my purpose. And as a result, I had to make up for lost time. So in the last 5 years, I really have been driven to become something, to put a lot of my energy into becoming a better version of myself and also finding my true purpose. And it doesn't matter if you have money. If you can have money and not have a purpose. You can have money and just be a horrible person. You can have money and not have success in dating. There's no fast rules here, guys. That's why a lot of you guys that listen to this stuff, looks, money, status, what type of women do you think you're going to get that is going to last over the long term if you're focused on looks, money, status, and she's also focused on looks, money, status? That relationship is going to be a disaster. Most likely you're going to end up with a borderline, a narcissist, or even possibly a sociopath or a psychopath, because they're all in that same cluster, the cluster B spectrum. And that's why I tell you guys, be very careful who you get involved with. Okay, I spent 13 minutes on that question. I apologize. We got to go on to something else. Next question. I've had a question for a while. I just need to ask. I've heard you mention the dreaded term scalper before you said you flipped some Nintendo 3DSs for a quick profit. As a video game fan, it's something I completely disagree with, as it can be hard enough to secure some pre-orders when Nintendo doesn't do enough of a print run. Ironically, you answered your own question. When Nintendo doesn't do enough of a print run. So who is at fault here? Nintendo. The manufacturer is engaged in mass-produced scarcity of some of these limited items because they know that people are going to go nuts for them on the secondary market simply because of the idea of scarcity. And that is a wrong concept to follow over the long term in the antiques and collectibles trade. Can you make money over the short term? Yes, because you go on to criticize me by stating, is this something you do often? And if yes, surely someone with your expertise could find another means of investing that doesn't affect the everyday consumer. Okay, fair criticism. I will take your criticism. Just know this. I am not one of the individuals out there that is creating bots or using bots to buy up all the PlayStation 5s or the new Xbox systems on the primary market and then flipping them on the secondary market. Basically, what I do is I just allow opportunities to come my way. So if I spend a certain amount of money with certain retailers out there, they will sometimes say to me, hey, Sean, I know that you pre-ordered this. I know that you expressed interest in getting 2 or 3 of these. We can make that happen for you since you're spending X number of dollars with us. So I just take advantage of that opportunity. I am not buying cases of this stuff. Do I recognize that that means that an additional 2 to 3 people are not going to be getting that particular item that's in limited quantities made by the manufacturer and also the retailer? Yes, I do. I understand that, guys. However, what you need to understand is I am only taking advantage of an opportunity that is presented to me. I am not purposely hurting someone. This is capitalism. At any given time, Nintendo or Funko Pop or whatever company we're talking about, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, whatever it is, Lego, they can easily up the production run and they could pretty much put people like me out of business. Now, a lot of those companies don't want to do that because let me tell you a secret. If people are chasing things on the secondary market, that means that those particular companies that are making those particular items that are being sought after on the secondary market, they're in the public eye. They're in the public consciousness. That's good for their business. So if little Timmy can't get the special edition Metroid Dread game, he's going to buy the standard edition. You see what I mean? And if he wants to pay a premium to get the special edition on the secondary market, he has every right to do so. And there's people that, I hate to say this, that are involved in these markets that they know that and they know that they can profit from it. So you are correct to point out the profit incentive, but you're not really pointing it out to the people that are actually driven by it, and that's the manufacturers themselves. So rather than blaming Nintendo, you're blaming the resellers, or you're blaming the auction sites, or you're blaming the retailers that allow someone like me to get 2 or 3 of those particular items because you're looking at it where, well, that means I can't get one. That's not what that means. That means that, number one, Nintendo in this case didn't make enough, and number 2, guess what? You didn't want it bad enough to pay a premium for it on the secondary market. In the year 2022, guys, mass-produced scarcity, limited quantity production of a lot of these items is the norm, meaning if you do want to get like a complete set of Nintendo Amiibos or some of these limited edition Nintendo Switch consoles in the year 2022, you are most likely going to have to pay a premium to get them. It is what it is. I don't see too many people attacking Nintendo for engaging in that practice. The last time Nintendo was attacked for doing that, do you guys remember the NES Classic Edition console that came out like 2015? And they only made so many, and people were really ticked that Nintendo didn't make enough. Well, I was one of those people that was mad at Nintendo for not making enough, because in all honesty, I wanted them to release more of those consoles because there's a lot of people that then have to pay a premium to get a cartridge copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, or a cartridge copy of Super Mario Bros. 3, or The Legend of Zelda. And they then have to go into the secondary market. They have to buy a Nintendo console. They have to buy those games if they want to own them in physical form. Where the NES Classic Edition was a great idea. It was a $60 console that had 30 built-in Nintendo games. So believe it or not, I actually defended a lot of you guys, and I went to Nintendo and I said, hey, I'm a consumer as well. I think you should make more of this particular product. And then what happened? Nintendo did eventually do a second printing of the NES Classic Edition. And you want to know what? To this very day, very few people want it because there's so many of them available in the overall marketplace. Now, some are starting to creep up in price. There are some that are factory sealed that are starting to sell for a premium. But I do know a lot of people that were ticked who actually managed to get one of those particular units from the original print run. Well, now Nintendo's screwing me because I paid $60 for this item and it's now seen selling for $120, $130. Now, if Nintendo does a second printing, all of those prices are going to drop, and the original people that bought into that product line, they're going to be ticked because they thought that they had something that had value that literally doesn't have a lot of value anymore because now there's more out there. Simple supply versus demand, guys. This is Economics 101. A lot of you guys are falling prey to a lot of these manufacturers who are utilizing mass-produced scarcity. That's why I've done a lot of videos about this on this channel. Go back and watch a lot of my earlier videos, guys. In most cases, your answer is there. Next question. Sean, so I'm trying to figure out what the F to do with my life. I've heard you mention a few times that you are a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. This sounds like a pretty cool job. What does this job truly entail, and would you recommend it to others? Okay, let me start there. First of all, there really is no such thing as an antiques and collectibles consultant. And I know what you're going to say. Wait a minute, Sean. That's what you've been calling yourself since you started this channel. Let me back up. If you would go to the Yellow Pages, if you would Google, does the Yellow Pages still exist? Maybe I'm getting old when I said that. Well, anyway, if you would Google antiques and collectibles consultant, I guarantee you, you'd probably get few, if any, hits on a Google search. So again, you're probably scratching your head. Well, wait a minute, Sean. How did you get into this business then? Aha, that's a great question. Back in 2013, when I was diagnosed originally with celiac disease, I started writing for Antiques and Auction News. And what happened was I wanted to do something unique, something that a lot of columnists in the overall antiques and collectibles trade don't do in any of their writings. I wanted to create a series of articles that would detail collectible finance. And up until this point, in 2015, there were very few people that were doing that. So I started writing for them in 2013. By 2015, a lot of my articles were centered around finance and the business behind the antiques and collectibles trade. What's going through a speculator's mind when they invest in these markets versus that of a collector versus that of an investor. And that was the primary focus of my articles from that point going forward. Well, there were a lot of people that just ended up reading my particular articles, and they reached out to me and they said, wow, you are really onto something here. And one particular individual, I'm not going to state this person's name, he is a very wealthy individual that you guys have all heard of. That's all I'm going to state. He lives in Connecticut. He works out in New York. That's all I'm going to state. He reached out to me personally, and honestly, he reached out to me through Facebook Messenger. And the first time that he reached out to me, I actually ignored his comment entirely because I thought it was a troll. I thought it was somebody who was impersonating this particular individual. So I let it go, and I didn't even respond. Well, about a week goes by, and I get another message from this individual, and I finally decide to respond. I said, you know what could it hurt? I'll respond back, and I'll see what this guy wants. So I respond, and he's talking about rare coins. He's talking about artwork, and he says to me, I want to pay you to analyze these markets for me. I want your background and I want your knowledge on certain markets in the antiques and collectibles trade. And right away, I was a little bit suspicious. I said, okay, this is a scam. I'm going to do free work for this particular individual. He's going to either publish the work under a different name, or he's just going to screw me and he's not going to pay me. So I didn't think much of it until he sent me a link to his LinkedIn profile. He gave me his personal email address. And when I started to do more research on him, everything checked out. It was 100% legit. So I ended up setting up a phone call with him. And I said, what are you looking for? I'm just a consultant in the trade. I write part-time. I have certain people that just reach out to me and just ask basic questions. I'm not sure where I'm going with this at present time. And he said to me, I want you to analyze these two markets. And again, I'm not going to repeat what markets they were. I already said it in this video. And give me your true analysis on this. So I said, okay, this seems like a lot of work. How are we negotiating this? And I think he paid me like $600. Okay, it was $600. And literally, I went through, answered all of his questions. It took me like 3 hours of work. Not going to lie. I spent 3 hours on it, sent it to him, and I thought, okay, this guy's probably going to want a refund because let's be realistic. All is what I did was I gave my knowledge along with what I know in finance, what I know about how these markets move, and I put it in this very generic Word document, sent it to him, and even gave him links of the where to go if he wants to follow up on my knowledge, where I came to these conclusions. And the guy reached back out to me in 3 days, and he was thrilled. He loved the information. So from that particular point on, I started thinking, maybe there is something here. With all the knowledge that I have of being in these markets since the age of 12, with everything that I learned from my mentors, from vintage advertising to rare coins, to firearms, to glassware, to high-end art, all these markets that I had exposure to, I got thinking, how many people literally had that much exposure to a lot of these core markets, even like rare high-end luxury collectibles like Rolex watches and the like. I pretty much had all this knowledge. So what happened was, I said, you know what? I'm not comfortable at this point yet calling myself a full-time consultant in the trade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think in this. And I basically went back to writing articles. I just went back to living my life. And wouldn't you know it, literally about a month goes by and somebody else reaches out to me and says, hey, you worked with so-and-so. He recommended me to come to you. I need an analysis of this market. I would like to set up a call. I would like to talk to you just how markets and the overall antiques and collectibles trade work from your perspective, from a financial investment point of view. So I said, okay, please understand, I'm not really licensed in this. I'm just a consultant in the overall trade. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm pretty much just talking about antiques and collectibles. If you want to set up a call with me, I gladly would agree to do that. And he said, well, how much are your rates? So this is where I had to kind of think, given the fact that I didn't have a core following yet, I started my rates fairly low. And as time went on, it caught on. A lot of word of mouth was spread out there. There's this guy that lives in Pennsylvania who's very well versed in the antiques and collectibles trade. He also knows finance. He knows business. He knows economics. He's putting it together. It's called Collectible Finance. If you're somebody that wants to learn about the markets in general, you can reach out to him. He'll either set up a video call, a phone call, whatever it is, and you can become more educated in these markets. So to answer your question, now that I've been speaking probably 5 minutes on this, basically it happened by accident. It was not planned. That's why I get so pissed off when people watch this channel and they reach out to me and they think that it's some type of conspiracy that I have concocted to make sure that certain markets fail and others succeed. And I sit here and laugh and I go, dude, I have 11,000 fucking subscribers. Do you think with 11,000 subscribers, I have the power to move markets in that capacity? No, the people that are moving the markets are the hype-driven people that you guys listen to that have 200, 300, 400, in some cases, 500,000 subscribers telling you to put your money in stupid limited run video games like the Revenge of Bird King. Remember that one, guys? Did a whole video on that. They're the people that are driving the market. Me down here, I just created a YouTube channel in my spare time, basically for free information. You don't have to give me a dime to watch these videos. The only thing I'm taking from you is your time to pretty much watch this information. That tells you guys how these markets realistically work. And for most of you out there, you'd be better off putting your money in mutual funds, index funds, real estate, getting out of debt, paying off your school loans before going all in on stupid copies of Revenge of the Bird King or certain Magic the Gathering sets or Pokemon cards or comic books or even rare coins, even traditional antiques and high-end artwork. The money is in, really, long-term investing in the financial markets and or real estate. That's pretty much how you make money the best in a capitalistic society. All this other stuff, it's fugazi. So to answer your question, how can you get into this? Here's a question that I'm going to ask back. What type of knowledge do you have in analyzing or appraising carnival glass or vintage advertising or a rare firearm or a historical document or a sports card from the 1930s? How can you verify it's authentic? Do you know how to do any of that? If not, that's going to be your barrier to entry. I've said this before. I know that looking at me, like Sean's involved in the antiques and collectibles trade. Oh my God, that's so hot. That's so fascinating. It's mysterious. He's dealing with tons of money and killer stuff. You guys are aware, I still work a boring corporate job every day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I never gave up my corporate job, as you're going to see in another question here. Now, can I afford to? I'm not going to lie. Yes, I could probably afford to walk away anytime. I'm not going to, though. And that's very important. And when you look at my perspective on that, you're going to understand that most people cannot just decide, I'm going to become a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. I'm going to become a published author. I'm going to do this. You have to have the knowledge. It's very easy to learn the collectible side of the trade. The antique side of the trade, very complex. You're most likely going to get slapped in the face with a stale donut multiple times as you try to learn that market. And there's a lot of information there, man. When you start learning the rare coin market, the idiosyncrasies of the high-end art market, even when we talk about just like the glass market, like glass bottle collecting, all the way up through Tiffany and higher-end glass, there's a lot of information there. Even me, I don't know it all, guys. I don't sometimes have all the answers. I have to go to dealers or even museums, people that I know that work in museums that have this information and hope that they give it to me, hope that they respond to my email to find the answers. There's no such thing as an expert that knows everything in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. It would be impossible. Where I stand out from a lot of my peers is I've had exposure to all of these markets at some point or another. That's what makes me, as some would say, just a little bit dangerous. Meaning, I can analyze some of these markets and I can go, oh, okay, I have that information. Wow. Well, this market seems very fascinating. Well, what's this market doing from a financial perspective? How many collectors are in this market right now? What are the demographics? And then I can go into that market and I can say, okay, what are the risk factors of investing in this market? Is there third-party grading? Are the auction companies operating in this market? Are they 100% legit? What are the risks versus the rewards? That's what gives me an edge. That's what a lot of people lack. That's why a lot of you guys that come to me, I want to be a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. I have to correct you. No, most likely, if you do get here, you're going to end up being a consultant in the collectibles trade. You are not going to learn or know high-end antiques because literally there's very few places I can tell you to go and get an education in antiques. I think, what is it, the Ashford School of Antiques? I think that is one of the last remaining realms where you can go and get an education in antiques. As a matter of fact, I just worked through a lot of their courses because I just want to have that on my resume so that people know that I have information about these markets. I just didn't get it all through my mentors or through experience. So I hope that answers your question. You go on to ask, other than a degree from the University of Sean, what kind of qualifications will one need to get in this field? Honestly, you're going to have to be educated in business, economics, and finance. That's pretty much the standard if you're going to deal with collectible finance. You have to know antiques and collectibles, but you also have to understand economics, finance, and of course, business. That's pretty much the key. So that's what I would tell you to need. You don't need to have, like I'm a very good writer. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but literally I've been writing for a very young age. So I'm a very good writer. You don't need to be a good writer to become a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. If you want to write for publications, you do. But just to know this and have this information, you don't need to be a good writer. You just need to be somebody educated in antiques and collectibles and finance, economics, and business. Hope that helps. Next question, and this is more of a fanboy question, as the author points out. I know you mentioned several in the past, but do you have an all-time favorite band or musical performer? My favorite musicians are, and this is going to sound very contradictory, but I assure you it's not. On one end of the spectrum, I love Enya. New age artist Enya. On the other end of the spectrum, I love Nine Inch Nails. And one thing that I'm going to tell you is I can relate to a lot of their songs very deeply. So if Enya puts out a song, I can most likely relate to it. If Nine Inch Nails puts out a song, I can most likely relate to it. My favorite genre of music is probably alternative, industrial, new age. I do like Yanni as well. Now, Yanni's more instrumental. I also like Sting. I like Peter Gabriel. I like Churches. I listen to a lot of 80s and 90s music, as well as, like I said, a lot of alternative. So I'm listening to consistently. I like Nirvana. I like the first Pearl Jam album. It's called 10, I think. That's one of my favorite albums. Nine Inch Nails, of course. So I like a lot of different genres of music. And then on the other end of the extreme, I do like classical music. That's something that shocks a lot of people. Although if you see me sitting here in glasses with my nice, neat haircut and obviously clean-cut look, you probably would go, oh yeah, that guy would listen to classical music. So that probably doesn't surprise a lot of you as much as hearing that Nine Inch Nails is probably my favorite band of all time. I really can relate to a lot of the struggles that Trent Reznor had. I don't want to speak for him. From what I know, basically that was released in the overall media throughout his very long musical career, I can pretty much just relate to his perspective on relationships, some of the struggles that he had, what he went through until he did get married in his 50s. He now has, I think, 4 kids, if I'm correct. And I understand his struggle. And that's why a lot of his early songs and a lot of his music, like Pretty Hate Machine, Downward Spiral, The Fragile, Broken, a lot of that stuff I am a huge fan of because you can kind of see the journey that he went through to get to where he is. And again, this ties in to you guys with Red Pill Philosophy. A lot of you guys come to me and you go, hey, Sean, I don't have to heal my childhood trauma. I don't have to deal with anything out of the ordinary in regards to my attachment style in relationships. Women are the problem. No, my friend, it's you. It all starts and ends with you. You got to do the work. If you need therapy to heal something that occurred to you in your childhood, that is not a weakness. That is a strength that you're asking for help to get healed so you can become a better person overall, that maybe a person of the opposite sex would actually want to date. That's really the goal. You need to heal yourself. And that's really what I like about Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor specifically. If you look at where he started and where he's at now, he made tremendous strides. And I'm so proud of the fact that he was able to go through everything that he went through, find love, get married, have kids. And he now seems to be, at least on the surface, if you Google his name or if you listen to any of the interviews he has done, he does seem to be to the point where at least he found inner peace. I'm not saying that he's probably a happy-go-lucky guy, but he at least found inner peace with everything that he has dealt with. And I give him credit for that. And that's something that I try to pass on to other men, because you got to do the work. You got to do the healing. Life is not supposed to be like the Nine Inch Nails song Closer, if you guys get the drift. That's not what your life is supposed to be. If you're living your life like the Downward Spiral or even the Fragile, some of those songs, okay, you're living your life all wrong. You got to do the work. You got to work through the pain to find the panacea of peace and or happiness that you desire. And in most cases, life is not what you think it's going to be. Life is what it is. You got to make it work for yourself. And if you do want anything worthwhile in your life, whether it's money, relationships, friendships, health, it most likely takes a lot of inner work to get to that particular point. If that helps one man out there or even a woman that's watching this channel, I've done my job. Next question. Sean, congratulations on the 10,000 subscriber milestone. I truly believe you have much further to go. The sober advice found on this channel has likely saved a lot of people from making poor decisions. You should be proud of that. One question I can think of: do you plan to stay in your corporate job part or full-time after your current gig is up at the end of the year? Okay, because we're so late in this particular 10,000 subscriber Q&A series, if you guys recall, many months ago, last year, in the year 2021, I was told that my current corporate job would be ending due to the fact that my particular department, my particular facility that I work out of, was pretty much outsourced to another state. That's all I'm going to state in that. I don't want to give any type of negativity to my employer or anybody involved in that decision. So I'm just going to leave it there. Well, anyway, what I will tell you is there's been some developments in that end where I kind of got pulled into a sales role. So I will be staying with my corporate job. That's all I'm going to say. As of right now, I don't know how far into the future I am going to be willing to stay with my current employer and my corporate job. But for now, I do like the job that I have been given. I find it very unique. I find it challenging. And I also find it very engaging for me. It's kind of pulling me into the next level. I'm kind of forced now to come a little bit out of my shell. For those that don't know, I was in leadership in my last role. And the way that I managed was I was very able to at least stay in my own shell where I only engage with people if I had to. In this role, I kind of have to engage with a multitude of different people. And at the same token, I'm also being challenged and stretched in new ways because I can't just say, well, you know what, I'm gonna let this go to somebody else. I'm gonna delegate this. I can't do that anymore. So I kind of have to take an active role. So it's very interesting for me because you guys know I am more introverted. I kind of like doing things behind the scenes. I like being the puppet master behind the scenes that's all pulling the strings, levers. That's why a lot of people are surprised that I've done this YouTube channel. If you would go back and you would poll people that knew me back in 2015, 2016, and you told them, hey, in 2022, Sean is going to have a YouTube channel that's going to have over 10,000 followers. A lot of them would have been scratching their head. Yeah, okay. Because they know I really am not, I'm not into that. I'm not somebody that wants all this stuff out there and to be accredited to me. I'm a very private person. And people that date me know this, people that I get into relationships with, even friendships. I even tell people, you don't need to tell anybody else about my business, good or bad. Even if you think I'm the most incredible human being ever, you don't need to tell anybody. If you think I'm the worst human being ever, you don't need to tell anybody. I don't care. I just live my life for me. And as a result, it's been a very interesting ride how my life has turned out over the past 5 years. And more on that in another video. Again, guys, this concludes the 10,000 subscriber Q&A. Unless you have questions that I missed, then I will come back around and I will answer those questions in another video. Let me know in the comment section below. Have a great night. Thank you for joining me.